you talk for a moment about your views on global warming and what you'll do as president?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. I think, by the way, did you all see that, I guess it was today, I just saw a quick clip that Gore went to the White House today?
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting place to visit. I know how much he loves Bush. By the way, I'm proud of him for winning the Nobel Prize. I think all of us in America should be proud of him. I think my point was going to be, I think he's right. I think this is a huge crisis facing America and the world. And I think there are a number of things we need to do, none of which will happen unless we're actually willing to have a president who stands up and fights the oil companies, the power companies, the people who don't want to see progress. But what I would do is cap carbon emissions in America, have a national cap. I think the cap ought to come down every year. And I think we ought to reduce our carbon emissions by at least 80% by the year 2050. It may be necessary to do more than that, but for now, that's the scientific consensus. What makes me uneasy about that being the standard, though, is every time we get more information, it indicates the problem's worse, not better. So, I mean, I saw a piece showing the polar ice cap may be gone in 23 years if we don't alter our behavior. So we have a lot of reasons to be concerned. Below the cap, I'd make the polluters pay. In other words, if you're emitting carbon dioxide, you have to get a permit to do it. And you do it through an auction system. That'll generate a minimum of $30 to $40 billion. Use a big chunk of that money to invest in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuels, new alternative clean sources of energy. I think we should have a moratorium on the building of more coal-fired power plants unless and until we have the ability to capture and sequester the carbon. I mean, we're putting out 25% of the world's greenhouse gases, and we're 4% of the world's population. We can't continue to make this worse. I think we should work on that technology and invest in it, but until it's available, we shouldn't be building more coal-fired power plants. And one difference between me and at least a couple of the Democrats, Senator Clinton, Senator Obama, is I believe we should not be building more nuclear plants. I'm not for building more nuclear power plants. And that's a difference between me and them. But finally, and this is the hardest part, the part no presidential candidate ever wants to talk about, I think we need to actually have a president who asks Americans to sacrifice. Instead of just promising this and promising that, who says the truth, which is all these things are going to require Americans to take responsibility, to take action, and to be willing to sacrifice, to be patriotic about something other than war, to say that we can make this country better and stronger, and that we're actually in this thing together. And what we do as a national, by the way, I think that standard applies to virtually everything, not just global warming. I mean, it says something about the character of America, what we're willing to do about 37 million of our own people who wake up every day worried about feeding and clothing their children, living in poverty. Last year, I saw a report just a couple of weeks ago, 35 million Americans went hungry. 35 million. We have 47 million who have no health care coverage. What we're willing to do about this as a national community means something. It matters. The same way that it matters what we're willing to do about global warming. Because I've talked tonight about the importance of us leaving the world and our country better than we found it. Well, we will not meet that responsibility unless we aggressively go about protecting the environment and protecting the planet. And that means we need to ask Americans, and if necessary, mandate that Americans conserve. Conserve in our homes, conserve in our workplaces, and be willing to sacrifice, to alter our behavior. Things that are not going to be easy for us. But things that I think, by the way, I think America would have done that if Bush had asked us to do it after September the 11th. But he told us to go shopping. Instead of asking Americans to unite and take action together and sacrifice and be responsible. I still remember that famous, you're too young, but I'm sure you've read about it, that famous John Kennedy inauguration speech, ask not what your country can do for you. Well, the truth is we're at that kind of place in American history today, and we need a president who will ask Americans to be willing to sacrifice. That's what I would do.